Hello and welcome to Jumping the Street Sharks. I am your co-host, Nate Magnuski. We were supposed to record an episode tonight, but Richard had to go and lick all the doorknobs in his work, and he might have COVID, so we had to cancel. I should say postpone, because we are going to record that episode very soon. And Conan, I'm sorry in particular to you. I know you were supposed to be our special guest tonight, but we'll have you rebooked as soon as possible. So what I'm doing today is I'm actually doing a video diary to show you how much work goes into one of these episodes, what we do. I know it's a very stupid podcast, and I love it because of that reason, but there's a surprising amount of work that goes into it, and I figured I would take you behind the scenes and share that with you a little bit. So let's get started, shall we? You don't have a choice. Well, I guess you do. You could turn it off, but don't. Transition! The first thing I do is go to the Street Sharks Wikipedia page. And I'm doing this for a few different reasons. First and foremost, I want to see just a little bit about what the episode's about. So the episode we were going to record tonight was episode 11. So season 1, episode 11, or season 2, episode 8, depending on how you're numbering things. Sky Sharks. And it's written by a new writer, Michael O'Mahony, and it premiered on November 21st, 1994. And I pay particular attention to that number only because I want to see if the show has changed dates yet again, because it's changed dates a few times now. It went from, I think, Wednesday to Friday to Monday, which is not a great sign for a show. But looking at this, November 21st this week, 14th last week, etc., on and on, it seems like we are pretty stable right now. So once we have the dates, I'll use a few different websites to see what happened that week back in history, in the mists of time, in prehistoric 1994. So the first one I go to is onthisday.com / whatever the hell the date is. And let's see, I always go to the date right after the last episode aired first. So let's see, on the 15th of November. Let's see, Glass Menagerie opened. And a big old earthquake killed a bunch of folks in the Philippines. Let's see, German Bundestag officially elects Helmut Kohl. Congratulations, Helmut. So I go through here, I go through the whole week to see if there is any interesting news. For example, James Watts, American neurosurgeon, developer of the frontal lobotomy, dies at 90. That's a shame. If there's not enough for that week to make maybe 7 or 8 different news items that I care about, I'll go to another site. And this site is strange because it seems to have a lot of cricket news, soccer news, European playwrights, and musical theater news, and like the deaths of authors and actors from like the 40s. Not something that I particularly care about, and I don't think you do either because we're pretty much the same person. So if I can't find anything good there, I'll go to this other site, takemeback.to, and whatever the hell the date is again. And it gives me pretty much the same information, but with a couple little additional wrinkles that make things kind of fun. So let's go to the 15th here. So this tells me things like who the president was. If there's a good book that came out right then, who the Pope was. Then scrolling down, it tells me what the holidays are that day, what big events there were again. Sometimes they match up with the other site, sometimes they don't. This one tells me if there was any really great famous birthdays, more famous deaths. It tells me the movies that came out that year. It also tells me what songs were popular. So I see Boyz II Men, I'll Make Love to You was popular. And how could it not be? It's my heart song. And once I have a bunch of these items all written down, I have enough to, I think make it interesting and give you some history there. I can finally move on to my favorite part of this, I hesitate to say, which is, of course, watching the show. And that's a whole process in itself. So, although I do have the full DVD collection of the Street Sharks, humble brag, I don't like to use that when I'm watching the show because when I'm doing my first watch through, I have to pause and rewind and just, it's so choppy, it's hard to do on a DVD player. Luckily for me, and for all of us at home, we can go right onto the YouTube official channel for the Street Sharks and look at all their episodes. So I will start my quest here to review the show. This is a 21-minute episode, and to get a full review of this, it's going to take me about maybe 2 hours. And that seems extreme, but I'm pausing it so often, I'm writing such detailed notes on it, that it really does take that full amount of time. And so, I'll show you my notes though. For each episode that I review, I write about between 2,500 and 3,000 words of notes. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but just take a gander here. If you can see the word count on the bottom is 2,877 words. And yeah, this is not a script. I don't read this exactly as I'm going through everything, but it helps me remember what happened. It's little notes to myself like, hey, this is weird. Hey, this happened at minute 226. That kind of stuff. You know, if there's something that I think is really funny, I'll write that down and write my initial thought on it. Or if I have things that I know Richard will say, because we've been friends for over 30 years, I'll write that down and just wait for him to say it so I can call him out because he's predictable. You're predictable, Sullivan. You hear that? You shit. So once I've done that, once I've watched it all the way through, I'll watch it a few more times without pausing at all just to get a better idea for the flow of the show. And there's one thing that I'm also doing while watching it, beyond taking notes, beyond watching it again just to get a better idea of the rhythm of the show. I'm also looking for the perfect screen capture to make our title card for the show. And, we've had Lena's beautiful legs a couple times. We've had Ripster getting blasted with jizz, all the classics. And this show is not really any different. I think this title card's at like minute 149, the one I picked. Let's see what that one's going to be. Let's see here. If I can get there exactly. Yeah, 145. Same idea. I'll get there. But yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Look at them cakes. So this will be our title card. I'll take a screen capture of it, and I'll clean it up in my fanciest editing program, MS Paint, so that I can later on dump it into Canva and make a title card out of it by putting some text over it, making sure it's square, because Patreon for some reason only uses square images, unlike everything else that uses, like a 16:9 ratio. So I'll do that, and I will get that ready for you guys, so you can have a beautiful introduction to the show that's usually as upsetting as I can find it, because that's the kind of guy I am. So before we start recording, the last thing that I do is I have to find my street fact, just like Richard finds his shark fact. And as Mr. Ray started the tradition, anybody who's on the show as a guest has to find a street shark fact. So for my shark fact, I have a very scientific way of going about how to do this. I go over to Google, and I look up. This is going to blow your minds, guys. I look up the words shark fact. And whatever comes up is usually crap. It's usually a lot of crap. Things like, sharks can go into a trance. Sharks feels like sandpaper, that sort of stuff. So if I want to get a little raunchy with it, I will look up a specific shark. That's how I ended up with looking up like a question like, oh, what's the smallest shark in the world? That was last week. It came up with the dwarf lantern shark. This week I was like, I know megalodons are really big. How big? And I found out that information. Oh, and here's a little extra bonus fact for you guys, just so you get a little more out of this little video diary. Even though both megalodon and dinosaurs are extinct, they never lived at the same time. Dinosaurs died out 65 million years ago. Megalodons came about 23 million years ago. So, there you go. Now we once again get to keep our educational grant. So we've watched the episode a couple times now. We found our title card, we've created that. Everything's ready now to actually record the show. And Richard and I have tried doing this through Discord before. The bots are too finicky on there for my liking. And so, thankfully, my work doesn't know they're being very generous, but they are. It'll be between just us. Don't tell them, because I don't want to get in trouble. And they have a Zoom Pro membership. So, let me just get over to there. Not that you really need to see it. But, transition. I'll host a meeting with video on. I will invite Richard to the show, make him host so we can record it. And then, we usually record for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. We'll record that. We'll get through our rules. We'll get through all the different segments we have. If we have a gene slamming to do, we'll do that at the end. And that 2 hours, 2.5 hours will end up being edited down to about, transition back to my beautiful face, will be edited down to about an hour, all told. And there's nothing really weird getting cut out. It might be that we're talking over each other, or it could be that one of us mumbled. I don't know who amongst us mumbles and maybe talks too fast. It's definitely not me. So stops thinking about it. Okay? Thanks. But one of us is always talking too fast. And it's probably Richard. He's not here to defend himself, so he's going to take the heat. That's how it works, man. Sorry. So once he's edited it all down, and I know Richard tries to edit it a little bit every day. He tries to edit like 15 minutes a day for the week and a half or so that he has the episode to work on. Sometimes life gets in the way. We're both dads. We're both working full-time. We both got families. And so sometimes he has to do like a marathon session right before it comes out. And then once he has it, he'll post it into our Google Drive. I will listen to the rough. I'll make any edit suggestions that I have. And then we get to share it with you. And that's it. It seems like a fairly streamlined process at this point, and it really is. We've, I think, gotten better at it as time goes on. I know Richard said that he has to edit less every week, which is good. That's kind of the goal. But all told, I think this takes us about 10 to 15 hours to produce an episode of this, between the watches and rewatches, between trying to edit, between digging around for all the facts and the news. A lot of effort goes into this powerfully stupid show, and I hope that the results reflect that. It's honestly such a blast to do. The work does not feel like work. It feels like fun. It is fun, and we wouldn't be able to do any of it if it weren't for you jolly assholes. So, thank you. I know I keep saying this every episode, but it's true. We couldn't do this without you. We couldn't have the main podcast without you guys. You make it possible, and we really, really appreciate it. So, for the Pot of Blunders and for Jumping the Street Sharks, I am your co-host, Nate Magnuski. Fuck, what is it? Be a freak in the sheets. That's not my part. I don't know that part. Be a freak in the sheets and a shark in the streets. Jawsome!